Welcome to Channel 24. Today we're joined by Dmytro Kuleba, diplomat and a former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. We'll talk about geopolitics, diplomacy in wartime, and the latest developments on the international stage. Everything that matters right here today. Dmytro, it's a pleasure to have you here in our studio.
The pleasure is all mine.
Dmytro, so let's begin from the latest news and about what's happening right now in the United States. We have President Zelensky visiting states, and he's going to plan to have a meeting with the American president. Actually, do you see that the relationship between the United States and Ukraine has changed dramatically since the meeting in the Oval Office in February this year?
Oh, indeed. The meeting in February was a disaster. But over the last, I would say, 6 or 7 months, the relationship has been more or less stable and coherent. The biggest achievement, of course, is that President Trump does not support anymore those people on his team who took a clear anti-Ukrainian stance and who advocate such decisions as suspension of delivery of military assistance and selling weapons to Ukraine. But there's still a long way to go, because it's good that President Trump has evolved into being more balanced towards Ukraine compared to where he stood in the beginning of the year and during his campaign. But unfortunately, it is still not enough to change the tide of the war. So more needs to be done. But it's very good that presidents are talking, probably even bonding, that there are conversations at different levels among their teams. But we need to turn from good mood, good vibe in relationship to good actions in relationship.
The breaking news during this latest 2 weeks in Ukrainian society and the international one is Tomahawks. Whether the Washington D.C. will give them to us, and why American president is hesitating to give them. And there was such a lot of rumors and analysis about that we're gonna get them. And after the latest decisions of the American president to meet with Putin again in Hungary, do you think that we're not going to see any Tomahawks in Ukraine in the visible future?
Well, timing is challenging, because it depends on what we mean under visible future. I think I will dare to say that, or to presume that there will be no announcement on Tomahawks today, following the meeting between President Zelensky and Trump. American president is trying to play the Tomahawk issue as a trump card that he keeps in his pocket. And basically what we see today exactly the same pattern as we had seen ahead of the summit in Alaska and the summit in Washington with European leaders and Ukrainian leader that followed the Alaska summit. When Trump was kind of steered into the direction of supporting tough economic sanctions against Russia. Mm-hmm. And he evaded that corner by proposing a summit to Putin, and which Putin agreed to hold. It allowed President Trump to tell those hawks around him, like, hold your horses. I need to talk to Putin first, but it's good that we have this leverage that I can play with. We're seeing exactly the same pattern now. Mm-hmm. It's just that Tomahawks work as a leverage instead of the sanctions bill. So I'm thinking about giving them Tomahawks, so maybe you want to see me and make a concession. Putin realizes that this option is on the table, so he clearly agreed to follow the same pattern and to hold the summit, another summit with Trump. But President Putin is not a boy in politics, so he will try to escape the trap and redirect President Trump's energy and willingness to end the war. So in a nutshell, it's good that the conversation about Tomahawks is real. But I think that today it's being used more as a trump card to outfox Putin rather than a mean to make Ukraine stronger on the battlefield.
Let's imagine that theoretically we're going to get Tomahawks. If not today, then next week or in a month. And do you think that will be a nice thing to Ukraine to hit Russian energy infrastructure and to create blackouts in Moscow and to make their life much harder, as much as they are doing to us?
No, I think, well, I'm not a general to decide on this, but from what I see in the news, I believe we have become pretty efficient and effective in hitting Russian oil refineries with drones actually produced in Ukraine.
Yes.
So we have weapons to shatter Russian energy system. I believe where Tomahawks could be far more impactful is hitting Russian defense industry. We need to knock out the production of drones. I mean, we need to slow down the production of drones in Russia.
In Russia.
Of course. And perhaps Tomahawks could solve this problem because it's hard for me to imagine that we Ukrainians have not tried to address this problem with weapons already available to us. So probably we did, but these defense industry facilities are being effectively protected. I don't think perhaps this protection will not be enough against Tomahawks, but our goal should be in undermining Russia's production of drones, which inflict such enormous damage on Ukraine. But again, I'm not a general. This is just an ordinary man who follows the news speaking.
Yeah, so basically we just need to adapt to the hot and cold approach of American president. Actually, it's all, we know that in Ukraine, but every time it's like we see it for the first time.
Yeah, because we believe in hope. We believe in miracles, and we believe that one day something changes. But President Trump is not as mercurial as others want to portray him. If you read him, he has some very strong beliefs and convictions.
Yes.
And he follows them. Yes, he can change his position, but he doesn't change his beliefs, his fundamental beliefs. So Ukrainians should come to terms with reality, and the reality is that we are the only ones who can make a miracle. No one else can do it for us. It's like, imagine you are, you are perfect, but imagine an obese person. And that obese person comes to a doctor and says, I want an injection that will bring me into perfect shape. Yeah. And the doctor says, listen, you have to change your lifestyle first. No injection is going to help you.
Yes.
So this is Ukraine and the United States of America. There is no injection that can make a miracle of transforming a person from obese one to a perfectly fit one. It's all inside, it's all in Ukraine. And the good news is that we are capable of making miracles, and we have proven that throughout our history, including the most recent one.
At the beginning of this year, you said at the interview that the peace between Ukraine and Russia is not even on the horizon, and the game hasn't started yet. What will be the sign, the ring bell, that the game has started? Because I've heard the rumors that peace talk track could restart again in a few months.
Listen, we should differentiate diplomacy from diplomatic communications. Okay, so we've seen over the last year, we mostly what we saw was mostly communication. Different countries were making messages, moves, but these were not real negotiations. The summit in Alaska was an attempt to negotiate, but it failed. It didn't work.
Yes.
Today we're seeing another attempt to negotiate. We don't know whether it's going to fail or work. It depends on how strong President Trump will decide to play against Putin. Throughout this year, we mostly heard and observed diplomatic communication, but we saw very little of real diplomacy. And the reason for that is very simple, because you have diplomacy, real diplomacy working when all key stakeholders have genuine interest in changing things, in changing the course of things. And President Putin just doesn't want to change the course of things. He's perfectly fine with what is happening, because he believes that this path that will take him to victory. So we've seen episodes of diplomacy, but there is zero reason to argue that we spent a year in active diplomacy.
You know, actually, speaking about the diplomacy, do you think that modern diplomacy has dramatically changed? Because when you see that the American president acting very impulsive, it's definitely out of protocol. Or like Erdogan, who's saying about the cigarettes and to Meloni, a kind of an inappropriate, from my perspective, thing to say to anyone, actually, especially on the level of diplomacy. Do you think that modern diplomacy has changed?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 6 years ago, the most common question to a diplomat that everyone seemed to be interested in was, like, tell us about diplomatic protocol. It's so fascinating. You are such weird animals. You follow all these crazy rules. Today, diplomats themselves hardly follow all the rules of protocol they used to follow 6 years ago, and it's like the most evident example. But mainly diplomacy. The main reason why diplomacy changed is the same reason why our societies change. It's the arrival of social media, the arrival of endless flows of messages and information. If diplomats want to remain relevant, they have to keep up with the way people consume information. So this is why diplomacy in the old days was follow the rule: do something, but don't tell anyone that you did it. Yeah. And today, diplomacy is mostly, not in all cases, but mostly, is guided by the rule: tell something that you are going to do it. Yeah. Yes, and then don't even bother to explain why it didn't happen, because no one remembers it anymore. People's memory is so short. So I'm exaggerating, but this change is fundamental, and today's diplomacy is very different.
Speaking of Europe, actually, and latest Russia's violation of the airspace of NATO countries. Lots of experts said that Russia wanted to push them away from Ukraine, to be focused more on their self-defense. Do you think actually it worked in Ukraine's favor?
What? The
Russian violation of their airspace. So basically, it didn't push away Europe from us.
No. I don't think Putin is trying to push Europe away from us by interfering or by intercoursing into Russia. He's preparing for a war with an EU country. It's a completely different story. They will not walk away from us. Quite to the contrary, there are all indicators that Europe is clinging to Ukraine, and because they realize that we are their best hope when it comes to defense against Putin. So NATO soldiers, American soldiers, are not going to die for Europe. I think President Trump will not abandon Europe. I believe it's a false narrative that he doesn't care. But I'm pretty certain that U.S. soldiers will not do the fighting on the ground. So no, I think Putin. Those who believe that Putin is attacking Europe in order to scare them away from Ukraine, yes, they misread Putin's intentions.
Okay, so that's not the intention. But I just want to follow up on that one. So basically, you think that Russia is capable to open a second front?
Yes. The assumption up until 2024 was So up until 2024, the assumption was that Putin cannot afford second front before he closes in on the first front, which is in Ukraine.
The tasks in Ukraine, yes.
Now, the impressive progress achieved by Russia in the production of drones and other weapons changes that calculation dramatically. Because today Putin can accumulate certain amount of human resources for a local war with one of the European countries, which will be a war against NATO, but it will still be a local war. We should all remember that, you know, every war, the first instinct of politicians is to localize the conflict. So no one is going to fire nuclear missiles on Ukraine, on Russia, if Russia invades Finland or Estonia, for example. And this is the calculation.
Finland and Estonia first in the list.
I think Baltic countries plus Finland are the most obvious targets, unfortunately. But with this amount of drones that are available to him, with this amount of ballistic missiles that he is producing, not in such quantities as drones, of course, but still, and with a steady flow of cash into his war economy generated from oil trade, I think he can afford a mainly drone war against a European country.
Yes, but when you're listening NATO chief Mark Rutte, he's so optimistic. He's always so optimistic that Russia is not a threat to them.
Of course, no. He never said Russia is not a threat.
Okay, no, that's not correct.
Yes,
right.
He actually believes that Russia is a threat, but he's optimistic that NATO's response today is sufficient and NATO will be capable to deter Russia. Well, I highly respect Mark as Prime Minister of the Netherlands. He did fantastic job for Ukraine and for Europe, and I'm sure he is doing fantastic job as NATO Secretary General. But perhaps he's guided by the same words as I was guided in my position as Foreign Minister, and these words belong to Dwight Eisenhower, a general and the president who needs no introduction, who once said, "Pessimists never won a battle." So if you want to win a battle, you have to be optimist, and you have to be an optimist by definition.
Yeah, I've just had a prisoner of war just a few days ago, and he said like the same quote to me. Yes, and just speaking about Europe, could you just name this in person the strongest ally for Ukraine today? Could it be Merz, Macron? I don't know, Kaja Kallas. Who is that person, Starmer? Who's that person who's so deeply on our side?
I think we have to be more nuanced here because there are persons, you mean leaders, right?
Leaders, yeah.
And there are nations. And we judge leaders by their commitment and resolve, and we judge nations by their capability to deliver. So by capability to deliver, Germany is unquestionably the strongest partner of Ukraine today. By the sense of commitment and resolve, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen is unquestionable leader today. So there are other great personalities. I like President Macron. He did a lot of good things, but unfortunately France is in such a mess that its capacity to deliver is very limited. I like the United Kingdom very much. They did a great job under Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, and Keir Starmer was also very helpful, but they are drowning in their own mess. So if we're talking about like real volumes, real sustainability, and real commitment, it's Germany and Mette Frederiksen.
Dmytro, just to round up, what headline about Ukraine in 6 months you would love to see in the Financial Times or Political?
Ceasefire in the air. I think if we would get there in 6 months, it would be a huge achievement and a huge relief for the people of Ukraine. I don't think people who will be watching this interview abroad really understand what it means to live in winter, blacked out, with interrupted energy supply, with no water supply. That's really bad, and it extends the war to the whole country, and it's something that is doable actually. And if it happens, it will be the first precedent. Actually, the second, the first one was the grain deal, but the grain initiative.
Yes.
But the second, but it will be the first precedent on cessation of real hostilities between Russia and Ukraine since 2022. So it would bring relief to the people of Ukraine, but it would also be a diplomatically huge achievement that would hopefully pave the way towards broader ceasefire and end of the war.
I really hope that we're going to see that headlines, and as soon as possible, as soon as better.
Thank you.
Dmytro, thank you so much for your time, for visiting our studio, and I hope it's not our last interview with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.